Hey guys, it's Bill from Linden, Tennessee. So last time we were in the battery room here, I had just installed these gray cells. These are the ones that were in my Ranger. And these blue ones, these were in an electric conversion from long, long ago that I just kind of end up with. And this time I want to talk a little bit about battery balancing. All these batteries, there's lots of them, and they all need to be sort of the same state of charge. If you think of a state of charge, think of it like a bucket that's partially filled with water, say 2 or 3 inches off of the floor of the bucket, and then you have a whole bunch of buckets, and some of those buckets are actually taller than the other ones. So if you add water to all them buckets at the same rate, the shortest bucket's going to overfill. That's obviously an overcharged battery. And likewise, if they're all full and you discharge them all at the same rate, the shortest bucket is going to discharge first. That is a dead battery. Neither one of those is good, but if you kill a battery, you can't recover it. If you overcharge a battery, it could potentially catch on fire. Not so much these lithium iron phosphates, but those can. The dreaded lithium batteries with all that nasty cobalt in it, those ones catch fire if you overcharge them, and it's not a joke. They really will. These ones are much, much safer. They just kind of off gas this sort of sweet, peachy smelling stuff, and they sort of swell up. But the way to bottom, and there's two ways. There's bottom balance and top balance, and they're kind of self-explanatory. Bottom balance is you discharge them all until they have about an inch of water in the bottom of them. Top balance is where you charge them all until they're all full. When the short bucket gets full of water, you just stop putting water into it and let the other ones fill up. And then once they have filled up, you are now top balanced. And likewise, if you discharge them all when the shortest bucket is empty, you stop discharging that one and discharge the other ones until they're all equally discharged. Then whenever you charge them, you just charge them up until the shortest one's full. And that's it. The way to do that, the way to bottom balance them is you would use a resistor, and that's what this is. There's a big resistor in the back of this thing, and it's got a meter. And so with those gray and the blue cells, I individually went through each and every one of them. When the charge got to 2.35, this thing turns off and takes the resistor out of the system. The cells will bounce. They will come back up again. And when it comes back up to 2.54 volts, it turns the resistor back on and it discharges it to 2.35. Turns it off, bounces back up, and at some point they stop bouncing. The way to top balance these is by using an active balancer. And there's a couple ways of doing that. In my Jeep, I have what's called an Orion BMS battery management system. And it has what's called a passive balancing. So during charge only, when the short bucket gets full at a preset point, it'll start tapering off the charge into that bucket and allow more charge to go in the others. And it does that by just putting a resistor in the circuit. So all of that charge energy that would go into the short bucket is just getting turned into heat, and that works. It works fine. That's how most OEMs, original equipment manufacturers like Ford and Chevy and Tesla, that's how they all do it, and that works fine. But it's kind of wasteful, as you can imagine, because it's turned it into heat. The other way of doing it is with an active balancer, and that's what this here is. And there's a few methods of doing this. This one is a capacitive one. It's got a capacitor in it, and the other is an inductive style, and it has inductors in it. Either way, you're storing energy. Then the energy, so what this does is it watches all of the cell voltages, and if there is a cell that's higher than the other ones, it takes energy from that cell and puts it into a low cell. And that's how it does it. So it just takes it from this one and puts it into that one. So it uses the high one to charge the low one. That's a lot more efficient. You're not turning anything into heat. So that's cool. So that's what I've done. And that's what this is. That's what all these little wires are. Each of these wires goes to each one of these cells. And the way that these wire up is, the first one is the most negative cell's negative terminal. Then the second wire is the most negative cell positive terminal. So that becomes +1. And it goes to the second one, +2, +3, all the way up to 16. And likewise on this one, this is my most negative cell. So there's N1, and then this is +1, and then this is +2, and then you follow that cable all the way down to the bottom. That's +3, 4, all the way up to 16. And that's how you do that. It's not particularly difficult. You just got to make sure you keep aware of what you're doing. Maybe I won't die. So you just go through and you mark them +1, +2, and likewise, and that's +3, +4. Oh, man. Anyway, so that's what this is, and that's what that does, and it's very cool, and it works really well, and I'm very pleased with it. And I'm going to put this same sort of situation on my Cub Cadet. So before putting these on today, I did these ones today. I did these ones last week. One of these cells was at like 3.3, and another one was at 3.65 or even 3.7. Now 3.6 is where you want to stop charging these things, but there was still current coming into this from the solar panels, so it was getting into a situation where these could get overcharged, and it has happened. It has happened before. These cells have been kind of abused, but now I've got that BMS on there, and it's monitoring them all and it's balancing them all out. So the likelihood of that happening again it's unlikely. So that's good. It's good for the cells, and it's good for everything. Now, really, what I should do is I should come through and do these ones also. 3 more sets. Each one of these things, this takes a little bit of time because the wires that come on the loom that comes with this device are pretty short. They only stop here, so I can't go from here and reach that one down there. So you got to splice in a longer piece of wire. So not only do you have to put the terminal on it, you got to crimp a terminal onto that wire, then you also got to do a little butt connector, and each one of those connections is, you got to strip the end of the wire and put it in there and crimp it, and strip the other end, put it in there, crimp it, and so it just takes some time, and you got to kind of think about where everything's going to run. This is kind of a mess, but it's a lot of wires, so it's not too bad. But you want to keep it looking kind of decent. So if I do that to these, then I'd have to do that. Now these are a little bit different because whereas this is 16 in series, these are actually 14 in series because they have higher voltages. But if you were to count these, you'd see there's 3 here, and there's 3 here, and 1 there. So these are actually in groups of 7, and then there's 7 of those. So I just said 14. Now what happens is inside of each one of these cans, there are actually 4 cells. 2 of them are in parallel, and then those 2 parallels are in series. So you have basically 2 cells in here in series. And if you were going to put one of these BMSs on there here, this would be my most negative. This center tap looks at the voltage for, the center tap voltages. So this would be my most negative. This would be +1. This would be +2. Then you would follow it around. This would be +3. This would be +4, +5, +6, and on up to 14. That gets pretty confusing. Not gonna lie, that's pretty odd. And I'd have to do that with all these. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do that or not. I'm gonna probably come through here next time the cells are almost full, and just measure all the cell voltages and see if there's any that are kind of run away from the other ones. These tend to stay really, really tight on their own, so I may not have to. But yeah. And another thing I could do instead of keeping it on there all the time is just get another one of these harnesses. Oh, man. Yeah, sorry if this is jumpy, but my phone's trying to tell me it's going to die. Anyway, I'd get another one of those harnesses and just connect those boards as needed. Anyway, before my phone dies and I get too jumpy, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.